Meeting for April 11th, 2023. I'm Councillor Steve Robinson, and I will be your chair this evening. So let's begin by reading our land acknowledgement. On April 11th, 2023, we acknowledge that this sacred land on which Smiths Falls is now located has been a site of human activity for over 10,000 years and is rich in Indigenous history. This land is the ancestral and unceded territory of the Algonquin Anishinaabe Nation. We are grateful to the Algonquin ancestors who cared for the land and water in order that we might meet here today. We are also grateful to the Algonquin people for their contribution in the making of the Rideau Canal, which runs through Smiths Falls. We are mindful of broken covenants and the need to reconcile with all our relations. Together, may we care for this land and each other, drawing on the strength of our mutual history of nation building through peace and friendship, being mindful of generations to come. So, we have no amendments to the agenda tonight. And disclosure of monetary interest. Anyone? Seeing none. We have no delegations. We do have adoption of minutes. The recommended motion is that the minutes of the March 13th, 2023, March 20th, 23, March 27th, 2023, and April 3rd, 2023 Committee of the Whole meetings be received and filed. Can I have a mover for that? Don, or Councillor Quinn, and seconded by Councillor Miller. Thank you. It's carried then. CAO or Director's Report, Acting CAO McMunn, have you got a couple of reports you want to?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. We do have a couple of reports this evening. The first one being from Fire Chief Cheeseborough and the second from myself. So, Chief, if you want to go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have four quick reports for you tonight, and one maybe a little longer. We're pleased to announce that we have hired Tammy Hardy as our part-time dispatcher. Tammy is also a part-time dispatcher with the Smiths Falls Police. Tammy brings with her over 20 years experience dispatching for the OPP in Durham region. So she's certainly a welcomed addition to our dispatching service. The next item, we've hosted a first aid and CPR course for regular staff. And that was done the first part of March, and the last week in March. We're able to certify and recertify 32 new staff throughout the municipality. We have another one coming up in June the 7th and 8th, and that's primarily for the public works staff. Our hope and intent is by the time that course is finished, we should have close to 80, if not higher % of all staff that have received the training at least once. And the certification is good for 3 years. So we're going to keep that going and continue that program. Last weekend, not this past weekend, the one before, we hosted a CP rail training. And we invited the surrounding departments within Lanark County and outside Lanark County to attend. It was a 2-day session that CP put on. And they put them through quite a rigorous training, both in the PowerPoint and acknowledging the different types of incidents they can run into, types of services that they provide, the type of services that are expected through municipal fire departments. We will be getting a copy of their presentation that I will be able to send that out to council so that you can take a look at that and review it. The next item, we received a grant from the Fire Marshal's Public Safety Council, the amount of $900. And that went towards training material through the Fire Marshal's Public Safety Council for training manuals for the mandatory firefighter certification that's mandated to be in place by 2024. And the last item that I wish to bring to your attention and publicly acknowledge, during the weather event of last week, the absolute outstanding operation that our fire department displayed during that weather event. And to put it into perspective, during that weather event, we received 163 911 calls. We dispatched 106 dispatch calls. On top of that, we received 253 non-emergency related calls to trees down or roads partially blocked. Our department responded to 16 different instances during that event. They range from a structure fire to motor vehicle accidents to lines down to CO calls. We were able to have a full complement on our first run pumper, a full complement on our aerial, and a full complement on our rescue, with 2 additional standby staff in the event that the tanker had to be deployed. We made 70 calls to Ontario Hydro from the various events, advising them of the number of calls that we're receiving. We experienced 2 power outages during the receipt of the calls. Our system crashed twice. We had 4 communication towers down throughout the county, and we had 1,270 radio transmissions that were made during that event. Not one instant was there a problem with the staff working dispatch. We had 3 full-time dispatchers working at once. We had the volunteers assisting in note-taking for those dispatchers to keep the ongoing notes. And that without hesitation, there was no issues whatsoever. So it was just an outstanding job done by each and every one of the firefighters in the job that responded that day. Just exceptional. That is my report for this evening, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Has anybody got any questions or comments? It sounds to me like you were a very busy man, and your department as well.
We were.
Mayor Panko?
Yeah, Chief, you mentioned some of the county's communication towers were impacted by the ice. Is that I guess maybe redundancies, I assume, to work around that, but is that something that should be addressed, or is it, I mean, it was a horrible ice storm. It doesn't mean we won't have it again. It doesn't mean it could be worse in the future. And I know the cell towers were impacted by the volume of ice. And so has this raised any red flags?
Through the chair, that's an excellent question. Yes, it did. And it brought to life a number of items that we've been addressing for some time. Certainly the age of some of the equipment that's on these towers, the ability to respond from a service perspective to get the towers back up and running, posed a greater amount of work on the dispatchers. They were going to Google Maps, paper maps. They were responding using the Who's Responding app. On a number of occasions, it was landlines that we were making communications with. So they adapted to all the hurdles that we encountered during that event. My report later this evening is going to address some of those items, such as the redundancies and double redundancies and backup plans, and hopefully moving forward, these will be captured and addressed with the new system.
Thank you. And again, job well done to all hands on deck.
Thank you.
Anyone else? No? Okay, acting CAO McMunn.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. If council recalls, back on the 13th of March, Jason Barlow, our manager of water wastewater, he did present the 2022 drinking water summary report, and that was received by council for information. At that time, we were the report was absent of our 2022 rating inspection. I'm pleased to say that since then we did receive our rating from the MECP, the Ministry of Environment, Conservation and Parks, and I'm quite happy to report that we did receive 100% rating for that calendar year. So good job on our utility staff side for maintaining the system well, and I think that's something to be celebrated for sure. Happy to take any questions, and I do have Jason Barlow on the call here today too.
That's great. Anybody got any questions, comments? No? Oh, just thumbs up. Good job, guys. All right, thank you.
And sorry, I do have one more report, Chair.
Sorry.
Yeah, so just wanted to advise that if council recalls, we did approve the granulated activated carbon filter media project in our 2023 capital budget. That work did commence on the 3rd of April, and just talking with Jason here this afternoon, that work is scheduled to complete this coming Thursday. So that project will be, for all intents and purposes, completed. So again, great job with Jason and his staff for getting that project off the ground and getting it completed in a timely fashion this spring. Thank you.
Oh, thank you for bringing that forward. I'm very happy to hear it'll be done on Thursday because all I've been able to hear for the last week or so is vacuums and stuff going. While they're putting stuff out and taking it back, putting it back in. All right. We have no correspondence items, no in-camera issues. So let's move on to our priority issues. So the 2022 Water Pollution Control Plant Performance Report with Manager Barlow.
Thank you, Mr. Chairperson, Mayor, members of council. Tonight I bring forward report 2023-046, and it's our 2022 Water Pollution Control Plants Performance Report. The purpose of the report is to update the owner, mayor, and council and the operating authority and top management regarding the wastewater treatment subsystems operation for the period of January 1 to December 31, 2022. This annual performance report must be forwarded to the Ministry of Environment, Conservation and Parks no later than March 31st of every year. This is not as strict of a guideline as the water report, which must be to council before March 31st every year. This report must go to the ministry first. And then once it's completed, then we have time to bring it to council for information purposes. So you know what's going on in the facility. In 2022, a total of 2,773,433 cubic meters of wastewater was treated. In comparison, I was looking at some numbers, and in 2021, that number was 2,832,000. In 2020, it was 3,676,000, and in 2019, that was 3,768,000 cubic meters of wastewater treated in those previous years. Solids handling, as you're aware, we create the fertilizer pellets with the solids from the system. In 2022, we processed 16,491 cubic meters of sludge. That filled 557 super sacks, which totaled to 358,822 kilograms of pellets. And the pellet production, the machinery, operated for 2,458 hours in 2022. The rated capacity of the wastewater facility is an average of 14,700 cubic meters per day. Our average daily flow for 2022 was 7,599.3 cubic meters per day. And that is seen as 51.7% of our rated capacity. And again, if we go back into the data from earlier years, in 2020, we were at 68% of our capacity. In 2019, we were 70% of the plant capacity. Item 4.2, so meeting of final effluent limits and objectives. We did have exceedance in our effluent limits for December of 2022. That was a result of a bypass event during the holiday season. It just came upon us in such a way that there's not anything we could do. It did impact some of our treatment facilities with the amount of flow that was going through the plant. And with that sample is a grab sample, so it's just one sample, but it, as in previous years, it must be reported as a similar sample to our composite samples, which are completed every Wednesday, which we use to make sure we're within the limits. So there is a difference in our perspective that it's a grab sample, it's just a one-time sample, whereas every other sample throughout the year is a composite 24-hour sample for that process. So it does kind of throw it, even though it's a high number, it's only that one little sample that threw us out of the average or over the effluent limits. Whereas the other samples are completed over the course of 24-hour periods. So to me, it shouldn't be required to be reported with those other samples because it's not the same sample. It's a kind of one-shot deal. So talking about bypass events in 2022, there were a total of 3 bypass events, which were 69.72 hours in duration, with a total volume of 11,964 cubic meters of wastewater bypassed. Just to put in perspective, with the past event here we had in the town with the rain last week, that was one bypass. It lasted, I think it was in excess of 80 hours, and our flow was 57,000 cubic meters of water just in that one bypass event. So we did have quite a disturbance with that flow event this year, but the plant was able to handle everything that came in, and we were able to maintain our treatment as best we could. Summary complaints. So there were no complaints received in 2022 regarding the wastewater pollution control plant. And also similar to the water system report, there is some sustainability review performance measures that we've added in here. So it kind of gives you a cost of per cubic meter of wastewater treated, as well as the bypasses, the sludge, but then also our coagulant and chemical costs, along with hydro costs and natural gas for the last 4 years, to give you a perspective on how we are operating the facility. So based on that, the recommendation is just for council to receive report 2023-046 for information. And then if you have any questions.
Councillor Brennan.
Thanks, Jason. I think it's very encouraging. Maybe you can explain. You said that we are now at 51% capacity at the facility, and I don't know how a couple of years ago we're almost at 70%. So that's thanks to, and I'll leave it to you to.
There's a couple factors in that. Some of it is the weather, because we do have the combined sewers that we need to look at for our infrastructure rehabilitation in the future. But some of that was also from the non-revenue water on the water plant side, which we weren't leaking into the sewer system and having to treat the other side. So there's a multiple array of issues that combine to create those totals. Like you look at this last event with the rain, like that 56,000 cubic meters in 3 days is a lot of water compared to what our average would be for the year.
Yeah, thank you for that. And I just want to congratulate you on all the steps that you're taking and are going to be taking in the near future. So, and good luck with those.
Thank you.
Councillor Quinn.
Thank you. Jason, that was a great report, and I was smart enough this time. I didn't print it all off. I got that figured. Thank you very much. But my comments are, what a great job is happening. And just last week, there was a water main break at Lapine right here on Elmsley Street. And I happened to be heading downtown, and I'm thinking, oh my goodness, we've got a river flowing over this street of ours. And about 10 minutes later, 15 minutes later, I came back, and there was your staff right there on the spot looking after this. And I thought, wow, that is fantastic. And they did work there till midnight, but they got it all under control. It just goes to show the great job that you and your staff are doing, and we really do appreciate that. And one other thing before I quit talking, I hope you have a great Sunday on April the 16th, climbing the CN Tower, and all the best to you. And we want to hear all about it when you get back. Thank you.
Mayor Panko. You're on mute.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Again, another great report, Jason. And I'm just trying to do the calculations there while I was waiting. But what's pretty incredible actually is reduction in our overall coagulant, hydro, and natural gas costs over the last 4 years. So in such an inflationary environment, you're actually finding a way to save us a significant amount of money. I guess we're treating less wastewater, but I guess the efficiencies you've created in the plant as well have borne fruit and certainly paid off for rate payers and our taxpayers. So job well done, just keep it up.
Councillor McKenna.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My question's for Ironman Barlow. I just wondered, Jason, the climate crisis and the weather event that we just had, Not surprising, our plant had real significant issues with that, as probably every other plant in Ontario did. And maybe you can't answer this tonight, but weather events and the climate crisis is with us. What would we need to do to reduce, what would we need to do to that plant in order to mitigate or reduce the number, or to better prepare for those weather events that are going to surely overload our systems? I guess, is it a new plant or is it continued a modification with the existing plant? Do you have any thoughts?
Yeah, through the chair to Councillor McKenna, Director McMunn might want to step in here as well and provide some more information. But I believe our next step is, as a town, is to look at the infrastructure and to look at the combined sewer system within the town and be able to separate those systems, as that is a very large component of the infiltration that we do have at the facility. So I believe if we keep, as we have this year, put money forward towards those projects, that is how to best alleviate the flows and the system impacts of the wastewater plant.
Director McMillan?
Yeah, through the chair. Yeah, I couldn't have said it any different than what Jason just identified. From my time here in Smith Falls, I'm happy and pleased to see, that the foot is maintained on the gas in terms of, maintaining focus on our underground infrastructure and dealing with our combined sewers. And, as we know, much of our sewer system north of the Rideau is combined sewers, and that all our storm water and our sanitary all flow through a one pipe system. And so everything that's collected via catch basins and, off our roadway is conveyed to our wastewater plant. So it's of no secret that when we have inclement weather events like we did on April 5th, last Wednesday, that we're going to see surcharging at our wastewater plant. And unfortunately, in those types of events, similar to what you mentioned, Councillor McKenna, a lot of municipalities are plagued with the same issue. We're not unique. We do experience bypasses in those heavy rain events, as we did here too. So really all we can do is maintain focus from a strategic perspective and keep doing, the Beckwith, the Catherine Street, the George Streets, and the list goes on from there. So, and all those streets are identified in our asset management plan. So as long as we can maintain focus going ahead, we'll get there at some point. It'll get better as we progress.
So thank you. So stay the course. Continue investing in our capital program, and perhaps maintain modest increases in our wastewater rates in order to keep moving this forward. So thank you.
Anyone else? Okay, well, thank you for your report. On a personal note, I hope that you are able to do all those steps in under 15 minutes. That is your goal, and you've been training hard, so I hope you achieve it. And thank you again for your report.
Thank you, everybody.
All right, next, the dispatching radio system report with Chief Cheeseborough.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My report tonight, 2023-052, is to seek council's approval to award an RFP 23-FD001 to Intertalk Information Systems for the replacement of our dispatching radio system. In 2021, our radio dispatching equipment was evaluated by 2 third-party consultants. We had brought the consultants in because we were experiencing a number of issues and problems, certainly from a dispatching side and from a service and repair side. So we contracted the 2 third-party consultants to come in and evaluate our system. As a result of the evaluation, they determined that the system was at the end of life, and parts were no longer being supported by the current suppliers, which was Bell and a couple other suppliers that we had in place. Our ability to expand our current dispatch capabilities would not be possible with the current system, And over the course of the last 4 or 5 years, we've probably received in excess of 10 requests from various municipalities to take on additional dispatching contracts. During the evaluation, we wanted to ensure that the implementation of the next generation 911 and the unknown requirements that would accompany the project would be compatible with our new system that we were proposing, and certainly identified the capital replacement cost for the new radio system. Prior to issuing the RFP, and the reason we took the time to sit and wait was not only for the next generation 911, but we wanted to ensure that we were successful in our bid for the Lanark County dispatching contract for a 5-year contract, which we were. So we've been awarded that contract as of last year, and we've got a 5-year contract with them with the possible extension of an additional 5 years. As a result of the successful tender application, we were awarded the 5-year contract. Based on the successful contract award, we thought it would be prudent to enlist again, a third-party consultant to come in for transparency and certainly for their technical ability and technical knowledge in the systems. Lieutenant Smith is with us tonight, and Jason was the lead on this project. But when it got into the technical details, that was just certainly a couple levels above myself, and we brought that consultant in to assist us and to create an RFP and determine exactly what we would need should we choose to take on additional contracts, what we would need for the current operating system and contract, and what would we need for the future. The system that's currently in place was a used system when it was acquired by Smith Falls. So it was half used when they acquired it. And that was based simply for dispatching of Smith Falls Fire Department. Over time, they've expanded that and taken on additional contracts. It's put a tremendous amount of strain on the system. Again, we're dealing with older equipment, older towers, no redundancy built into the system. And it's been working from a phone or a paper map to ensure that we can still provide that dispatching service. With the third-party consultant, we were also provided with a variety of different options for consideration that would be compatible with the next generation and a potential future expansion. We formed a committee of 3 lieutenants. That would be Lieutenant Smith, Lieutenant Bisonet, Lieutenant Fleming, and myself, along with the consultant and our IT, Blake Andre, to sit on that committee to assist in the creation of the RFP, to review the RFP submissions, and to do the evaluation and summary prior to awarding a contract. We set some timelines that got extended throughout the process as we had three proponents that expressed an interest in the RFP. So we issued it on January the 18th. We provided a non-mandatory site visit so they could see and understand the system that we currently have, what the backup system was, where we operate and how we operate, and the location of the various towers. We then offered them an opportunity to submit questions and we would provide the answers. That was issued on February the 8th. We had the RFP closing date on March the 6th. And then we had each of the proponents that submitted a tender for the RFP to come in and do an on-site presentation detailing their system. Going through the RFP submission, it gave our committee an opportunity, along with the consultant, an opportunity to ask questions if we were unclear on any of the documentation that was contained in their submission. Now, when I say the submission, we're looking at 2 companies that submitted documentation in excess of 200 pages each per submission. Very detailed, very technical, and certainly a very lengthy process. We set the evaluation summary for March 27th with an anticipation and hope that we would be awarding the contract on April the 17th, with a project start date of May the 1st and a completion date of October the 14th. When we were assessing and going over the submissions, we used some key features within the criteria to determine in scoring of each of the submissions. It was based on the compliance with our RFP. Certainly pricing was a consideration, system specifications, maintenance and ongoing services, project understanding and approach, how they were going to install it, how it was going to operate, and the benefits it was going to bring for both not only the dispatching side, but for the receiving side on the various departments. We looked at their experience and their reference, and then we looked at the technical requirements that were contained within the specification sheet. We based the criteria at a possible 100 points. As indicated, we only had 2 submissions. Bell Canada withdrew theirs, citing that they didn't feel that they had enough time to put in a fulsome RFP to be competitive with the other proponents. Bearcom Communications submitted a tender as well as Intertalk Information Systems. During the evaluation, Bearcom scored 63 points and Intertalk scored 86 points. Now, there is a $40,000 difference between both submissions. When we're going through it, we discussed, again, that criteria along with the sub-criteria, which is, there's another 30 criteria contained in our listing and point totals for each of the both submissions. Intertalk was the only proponent that identified a detailed price list for each item contained in their submission, which included a detailed list of optional items for consideration. Bearcom provided verbal communication during their on-site presentation that they contained all the items that were requested within the RFP. Bearcom was questioned by the consultant on the missing items in their tender submission, which also included a lack of options for consideration, such as UPS backup, which proved to be critical last week when we had the power outages prior to the automatic generator kicking in. That UPS that we currently have was able to keep our systems up until the backup system kicked in. The differences between their schematic drawing and the equipment listing and hardware support were not included in their pricing and the emergency response time in the RFP. We put a 15-minute response time by phone when we notify them of emergency and 60-minute on-scene time for emergency repairs. Last week, we experienced hours of downtime with the towers prior to on-scene time, which in critical infrastructure and critical communication, we do not have the luxury of waiting 3 hours, 4 hours, 6 hours for service to get to a site to get that tower up and running. That's the difference between life and death, or someone's house burning, or someone suffering more serious injuries in a motor vehicle accident. We have that in our current contract, those times. So these times are not adverse or indifferent to the times that we contained within that RFP. The requirement to provide the response time, the evaluation summary by staff and the third-party consultant. We are recommending that the tender be awarded to Intertalk because Intertalk was able to commit to that time frame to have staff on site within those time frames and to have available backup equipment in the event that a piece of equipment did go down. The total amount of the bid for Intertalk was $394,682 plus a non-refundable tax amount in the amount of $69.46 for a total of $401,629.28. That's approximately $98,400 less than what we had budgeted. In the budget amount was $500,000. And I know in most cases that we want to use pricing as certainly a very key point in the RFP. And we took serious consideration looking at both submissions. The higher priority for our evaluation was the technical support, the equipment, the redundancy, the backup redundancy, and the ability to detail their maintenance costs, their ongoing warranty costs, their service costs, and their availability to be on site. They're critical components to any dispatch radio system. When towers go down or radios go down and we have an inability to communicate except via a portable radio, we're stretching the limits. And certainly that was one of the key criteria in evaluating both of these companies. Both of these companies provide excellent equipment. both of these companies would be able to install a new radio system that I'm sure would meet our needs today and tomorrow and in the future. But again, it's the other items that are contained within that. Intertalk also provided a very detailed listing of options for considerations that would make the dispatcher's job that much easier. Whether it was a headset, whether it was a foot pedal for a push to talk, whether it was the ability to change screens, whether it was the ability to have a touch screen if a person wanted a touch screen, the ability to have phone communications coming through the screens in front of them, the ability to have not only the visual aspect to a tower down, but the audible throughout the hall. As we know, we're not sitting in dispatch 24/7. They could be out in the truck bay, they could be in the kitchen, they could be in the training room. So having that additional ability to acknowledge when a system goes down, then the dispatcher can get back in there and notify that municipality that their tower is down, and to put the call in to whatever company is the repair company for that particular tower. So during the analysis and the options, I'm recommending that Council Corporation of Town of Smith Falls receive and approve the recommendation to award Intertalk Information System with the dispatch radio replacement contract at a price of $394,682.86, plus the non-rebatable tax amount of $69,4642, for a total of $421,629.28. That is the recommendation. Option 2 is that the Corporation of Town of Smith Falls will award the radio dispatch replacement contract to Bearcom Communications, the amount of $353,992.20 plus the non-refundable taxable amount. We have confirmed prior to issuing the RFP and following the guidelines in the existing procurement bylaw. We've also vetted this through our Director of Corporate Services and Treasurer, Myra Bauman. Mr. Chairman, that is my report for this evening.
Thank you very much, Chief. That was a very detailed and interesting report to listen to. Any questions or comments? Councillor Brennan?
It's on mute.
You're not coming through. Can't hear you. Okay, thumbs up. Councillor Quinn.
Thank you. That is a very good report. And you know what? You struggled, I'm sure, with awarding to a higher cost, but you've also explained why. And that comes on strong, because then you know you're going to have the system that you really need. And you've evaluated it very, very well. And for that, we really do appreciate. And I have no problems going with your recommendation. And Jason Smith, thank you for being part of this. It's really nice to see that there's a team here working together. So both you and the chief and the others that were there, thank you. We really do appreciate that.
Thanks.
Mayor Panko.
Yeah, thanks, Chief. How many municipalities are we providing dispatch services to now? Is it about a dozen?
14.
14, okay. And you mentioned you've had inquiries from others, and the current system just did not have the capacity. Obviously, the new system will have expanded capacity. Do you anticipate this will help? This will lead to additional dispatch contracts. We'll have capacity within both the system and staffing to do so.
Through the chair, yes, there's no question that we have been approached most recently, and we have indicated that waiting on this report to come to council, and if it's approved, to put the new system in, we'll have the capacity to take on currently is a number of departments that we currently have dispatching contracts for now, if not more. With the IP-based infrastructure, I guess that's how you call it, your worship. I'm not technical when it comes to that. but we've been guaranteed that our system will have ample capacity. Not only ample capacity in the event that we were ever to reach a maximum within this current system, it's a very easily to expand this system through a licensing program to get additional licensing to expand it even further. What we want to do is designing this system is to not go, for 100 potential clients. We want to keep it down, to keep the licensing fees down, and to keep it something that we could maintain and currently handle. So for that fact, that's why we went with this. And it's quite hopeful. There's a number of departments that will be coming up for renewal of their contracts or issuing of RFPs. And again, we've been contacted by 2 of those most recently.
Well, it's very, very encouraging, and considering we've been utilizing what was a used system when we installed it many years ago. I assume this will last us for many years, and I hope maybe some operational savings from a technical standpoint without having downtime and without having repairs coming in. But overall, I mean, we have a fundamental responsibility to provide the right equipment, the right service to not just our citizens, but all our stakeholders here. So I think a great job done by everyone. And as Councillor Quinn indicated, we're often looking for the best price, but no, in a situation like this, we need to provide the best solution. And I support the recommendation.
Thank you.
Councillor McKenna.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm supporting the recommendation as well. Just to demonstrate perhaps my lack of technology skills and awareness, so Jason Smith can help me. Is there any need for interoperability between NG 911 and this system? And I assume that's built into whatever with this package.
It is.
Yes, Mr. McKenna, it is built into this. As we put this proposal out, we did take into consideration with our new NG 911 logger that we need to provide, and we are going to get that in this package as well instead of having to put it out for another tender.
Thank you. Well done.
Councillor Brennan, did you want to try again?
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Oh, good. Well, no, everyone is, I'll echo what they said, and really, I know it's more money, but obviously Jason and the chief and the committee did their due diligence and have gotten us the best possible deal, and it's still under budget. So congratulations, you guys. And, we look forward to getting this set up.
Thank you.
Anyone else have any comments? Well, I'm also in support of option 1, despite the increase in cost due to the fact that it contains a lot more stuff than what the other one did. So can I have basically a thumbs up for everybody thinks? Great. Okay, so we'll move that forward. Thank you very much, Chief.
Thank you.
All right, next. Confederation Bridge, the pedestrian bridge style selection with Director McMunn.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes, if committee recalls back on March 27th, so earlier, or late winter, early spring, I did bring a report to council to to consider the pedestrian bridge crossing versus a vehicular bridge, and council did support that recommendation from staff, with the caveat that the staff come back at a later date with what we feel to be the considered options for the pedestrian crossing. So hence the report that you have here in front of you this evening. I trust that everybody had a chance to peruse the report and look at the pictures and whatnot. So a little bit of background information here, I guess, on the analysis and options. I did consult with some folks I know at Algonquin Bridge. They are a main bridge manufacturer in Ontario, and I only contacted them because I'm familiar with them, and I talked with them before, and I knew that they'd have the information I was looking for. Not to suggest they would be awarded the contract or anything for bridge fabrication, but just to get information. So they're saying there's really about 3 different bridge solutions for a pedestrian crossing. The first one being a Pratt truss bridge. The second one being a Warren truss bridge, and lastly being a bowstring truss bridge. And they are 1 through 3 respectively in the report. So any one of these styles of bridges can be, the steel can have different treatment. There can be bridges with weathering steel, which is basically steel that does just that. It weathers over time. That rusty patina that you see on the outside of a bridge, that actually does give protection to the underlying steel of the structure. And it simply does that. It weathers over time. It doesn't rust as a result of, road salt or chlorides being used for winter control operations. It's not rusting like your car is rusting. It's rusting just based on the composition of the steel, and it's designed to do so. So it does give you that kind of nice natural rust look patina, if that's something that we're interested in. Secondly would be your typical galvanized bridge. I don't think that needs a whole lot of explanation. That there's a couple of pictures in the report for the Pratt truss bridge of galvanized steel. It's a silver look. I'm sure everybody's familiar with galvanization. It doesn't really, in my opinion, appeal to be a very aesthetically pleasing to the eye look, but some folks may argue differently on that. So again, it's a matter of preference. The galvanization does protect from the elements. With the galvanization, it does protect the underlying steel. And then lastly would be a painted bridge, and it should be noted that a galvanized steel could be painted as well, albeit it does increase the cost substantially for that type of structure, but that might be something that we're looking for as well. So again, back to the three different styles, if you would, Pratt, Warren, and bowstring. It's my opinion, and solely my own opinion. And again, this is open to council or committee's preference. I just happen to like the bowstring truss bridge because I think it offers a nice architectural look out of all the 3. On page 5 of 9 of the report, there is an image of a bowstring bridge there in cross section. It's a green structure. That's not a real bridge. That's just a mock-up version of one showing the different components of the structure: the top chord, the diagonal bracing, bottom chord, et cetera, et cetera. But it shows what it would look like in cross-section view. And I believe that looks much more appealing to look at than the 2 other alternate structures. If you were to look at page 6 of 9, there's a couple of examples there of bowstring trusses, one crossing a highway and the other one, I believe, crossing a river body, both painted black. One's got a wood deck, one's got a concrete deck. Both could be applicable in this situation in terms of the decking, but I do feel that concrete would stand the test of time and it would give us a much more robust structure. Wood, of course, is going to it would be probably 2x6 material, and it would need to be replaced over a period of time, and it would be subject to, just general wear and tear, where reinforced concrete wouldn't have that to that degree. So the recommendation in front of council this evening is to approve the bowstring style option painted black with a concrete deck. If approved, this would allow the project to advance to the detailed design through a request for proposal process to solicit proposals from consultants. And there'll be lots of them. There'll be lots of them interested in this particular project from a design and tender preparation perspective, trusting that perhaps maybe they would get the contracted man and inspection when the time comes for construction. It should be noted as well that with any of the 3 options, and again, this is just all with respect to cost. So once we start to deviate and we start to add additional stuff to the structure, which we can certainly do, is going to increase costs. I know there's been some conversation about you know, a viewing platform or the opportunity for folks to not only use the bridge as an active transportation piece of infrastructure to get from one side of the river to the other, but also use it as a destination for the town, in so much that people can go out and they can view the river and they can take photos, and perhaps it could be a good venue for vendors to set up on a Saturday afternoon if it was a little bit wider and there was a viewing section. So oddly enough, when I was doing my research and trying to find some pictures of all of these 3 different structures, I did come across one that was really, really interesting online, and I've yet to be able to go back and find it. I failed to save it at the time, but it had a round section in the middle of the structure. If you picture the bowstring bridge that was on page 6 of 9, mid-span across that highway, if you saw like a round area mid-span that was perhaps maybe twice in diameter as what the bridge is wide, with the viewing section, so railing all the way around it. So drop a circle right in the middle of that structure, if you will. I think something like that would be very interesting and present a really, really cool looking landmark for the town of Smith Falls. So again, that's an option. That's something that we can consider. But I think first and foremost, we need to identify which style of bridge we want. You know, color, I think, is important, and what we want the deck to look like. We know we're going to need to do work to the abutments on either side. That's a given, but they're going to be concrete. That's pretty straightforward. But I feel to go to RFP and leave it very, very open to different consultants' preference in terms of what they want to propose for that RFP process would be very, very difficult to score when we're reviewing those requests for proposals, because they'd be so different in terms of design. And then we've got the financial aspect of it that we need to score and weight as well. So obviously the design and tender preparation for, you know, if one was very, very different than the next, would be, you know, their pricing would be inflated just based on the amount of effort that would be involved in coming up with that design. But that said, that's the road we could go down. I just think it does present some issues for an RFP to go out to solicit proponents to bid this work. So it's my feeling that we pin it down. Who knows better than the council of the town of Smith Falls what they want. So if there's something different than what you see here today, I'd be interested in hearing it. And if not, I'm hoping that we can come to a consensus here this evening to keep pushing this process forward. And again, we will continue to look for grant opportunities. I know there's an active transportation grant that we've been researching. We've reached out to the funders, and they're telling us there will be another intake on that grant. It's not open right now, but we've got a direct connection with them, and they do have our email to notify us when the next round of funding does become available. And should there be other grant opportunities, we'll investigate those fairly hard and aggressively as well. And if there's money to be had, we'll find it, or at least apply and get a crack at it. So with that, Mr. Chair, I'm happy to stop talking. I think the report kind of speaks for itself, and happy to take any questions.
Well, I have a question. Thanks for that report. It's well done, and I really like the look of the bowstring bridge, and I'm going to support the recommendation for that. But you stated like that there's an opportunity to put, you know, a viewing platform in there. That top chord arch, is that structural? Now,
yes,
like,
it would
I guess my question is, if you install like coming out both sides from that, how would you get to it? Because without cutting the top chord arch.
Yeah, great question, and I've thought about that too. I believe with the span, so we have a 46-meter span from one side of from one abutment to the other abutment. So that's a fairly long span. That's about 140 feet roughly. So I believe the images that you're looking here are of a lesser span. And I don't believe it's to suggest that that top chord couldn't be more exaggerated, so it come up a little bit higher. And of course, it would have to do so if we were trying to incorporate something in the middle, i.e. a viewing platform. So again, likely to increase costs, but if it's something that we want to, you know, if we're not so much interested in just having a quote unquote crossing to get from point A to point B, you know, from a perspective of just getting from one side of the river to the other. If we want this to present and be an opportunity to be something more than just a river crossing, we have that opportunity. So, you know, we've got 1.3 something odd million dollars in the budget. Roughly 147,000 of that is slotted for design and tender preparation. So I think we have an opportunity to be here to be a little bit creative, and not to say that when we go to detailed design, whoever we pick for the consultant to design this, if we needed to scale back, if it was starting to get a little bit above our comfort level in terms of budget, we could always scale it back. Maybe we would need to remove the component of the center platform. I don't know. Maybe instead of the center platform, we go a little bit wider on the structure to offer the same experience, or to offer more deck space on top of the structure to entertain, if you will. Or maybe we don't simply have 2 1.5 meter lanes. Maybe we make it 5 meters wide instead of 3. Right. So there's different options, but
okay.
I'm happy to hear that at least we have one person interested in the bowstring truss bridge. I'd have to ask you, Mr. Chair, do you have a preference for wood or concrete?
I personally think that concrete is the way to go, and it's got you pour it, and with regular maintenance, it's good for 50 years, you know, or maybe even more. So that's my preference. And you did answer my question. That was my concern about how high was that actual arch, because, you know, I just couldn't picture, based on what I was looking at in the pictures, how that would work without being structurally, you know, creating a weak spot. So anyway, you answered that. So Councillor Miller, you're next.
Thank you. And thank you, Director McMahon. I liked your comment that we have a real opportunity to do something special here. And I think some of those extras that you talked about, which was a lookout point, and perhaps McIntosh Perry suggested a plaque commemorating the history of the area or the original bridge. And I think that lookout point could be an opportunity to have something like that there. I also think if the old water treatment plant ends up being a wedding venue, you know, having an opportunity to take photos on this pedestrian bridge is I think pretty key. So I don't dislike your recommendation, and could be fine with that, because I think it has a bit of industrial feel to it. Personally, I like the first example of the Pratt Bridge on the top of page 2. And what I liked about that, because I kind of could envision, you know, if we source some stone that were to match some of the heritage buildings that the bridge is close to, I think it would be really appealing. And I could see flower boxes along that bridge as well. So those are my preferences. Not to make this more difficult.
Mayor
Thank you.
Peko.
Thank you. I agree. I've said it before, but it's a really unique opportunity to develop more than just a river crossing. And doing some Google searches, there's a lot of bridges in the world which would be considered public art, and something which is a real attraction. So I think we have a unique opportunity here to create a destination, and something that is, say, unique to Smiths Falls. Of course, cost is going to be a factor, but we don't know that until we get further down the road. Definitely interested in the Active Transportation Fund, and hopefully that does lead to some funding, which helps mitigate some cost here. It may give us the opportunity to do more than we might otherwise have done. But as for style, part of me leans towards the Warren Truss, just out of respect for the existing bridge, the historic elements. It is a Warren Pony Truss bridge. And having another Warren truss style bridge there would be respective of that. I prefer painted to the galvanized look, or the other one, the one that would rust naturally. I think the galvanized just looks really probably too industrial like for my liking. So I think painting, probably black would be a fit. When it comes to wood or concrete deck, I prefer the wood, but I respect the comments made that it will have to be replaced at some point in time. There would be a bigger cost in the future for that. It's probably maybe more comfortable to be on. Would absorb more heat than reflect heat, or dissipate more heat probably than absorb it or reflect heat. Maybe more comfortable for people who are going to be on there. Also lighting, we haven't talked about lighting. I think, again, this would be a destination, and I'd want to see some more appropriate lighting as well as that viewing platform. And again, if you look around what's available out there, there are all kinds of various options where I guess if we're considering the bowstring, there is others out there that have the bows up over and above people's heads. So there's a lot of various options that are out there. And so part of me thinks that we should maybe put our heads together, and maybe it's a matter of some members of council and staff spend some time with the design considerations, and perhaps with Mac Perry there, narrow it down to a common vision, then bring it back to council for support. So build those parameters about what we'd like to see in that. And have the opportunity here to do something that we otherwise have never been able to do, and that's create a big piece of public art through this infrastructure.
Councillor Quinn.
Thank you. Now I've listened to Mayor Panko, and that could be a really good option, us all getting together and look at kind of getting a real feel for this design. I was in favor of the bowstring truss. I still am. I think it's got great options. One of my questions is, why black? Does it have to be black? Or could it be black with some accent colors in there? Like, our other bridges are like off-white. That could be an option. And I would support concrete. Where I have my business, we have all kinds of wood decking, and it is just dangerous in the wintertime, dangerous. So I could see the wood being slippery and not last as long. But I do agree that what we need to do here is build something that's very eye-catching. So as people coming into our town will say, wow, what's that? Must stop and have a look. Let's go see what it is. I think this is our opportunity to do something, and do something really spectacular, keeping within the budget. Thank you.
Yes, Director.
Yeah, if I could, Mr. Chair, to answer Councillor Quinn's question about why black, I think the idea here is that it be painted. Or that's my recommendation, to paint it versus galvanization or weathered steel for a number of different reasons. But I simply picked black because that is the theme that we have down through the DBA with our street furniture, with our traffic signal poles and our light poles. We have the railing on the refurbished sections of the Beckwith Street Bridge. So I think it naturally pulls and it flows from Beckwith Street across the bridge into Centennial Park. So that's the reason I picked black, just for that continuity from Beckwith Street through into the park.
Thank you. Just one follow-up on that. Painted bridge, do they have to be repainted, or is this something that is very sturdy and lasts for eons?
Yeah, through the chair. Like with any structure, it does have a lifespan. Regardless of what structure that we put there, whether it be galvanized, painted steel, or weathered steel, we cannot apply salt to the structure. Salt is a no-no on these structures. It will be we could be replacing the structure after 10 years. But in the absence of salt and proper maintenance, I could see us getting 50+ years out of this structure, if not more. Okay. Yeah. So black, red, whatever color we wanted to paint it, decide. I think those details can be ironed out later. I think the big thing is to pick the type of structure and the type of finish that we're looking for, paint color, whatever. We could figure that out at the 11th hour if we had to. So
Thank you.
Councillor Brennan?
Thanks, and thank you, Director, for the report. I think that I'd really like to see this move forward ASAP. And so, I mean, we've talked about lighting and then another feature on the bridge. And I think what you're looking for, Director, maybe is just some sort of consensus on the style. You say bolstering style, painted black with concrete deck. I support that. And so, we can talk about all the other features going forward, but the style, if there's gonna be a viewing deck, we can decide that later. But if those 2 points are covered, then we can go to RFP sooner rather than later. Am I right?
correct. Yes.
Okay, so let's do that.
Councillor McGuire?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Director McMunn. I appreciate the pictures and the depth of it tonight. But for me, I see the former Confederation Bridge was a landmark, and I think that's why there was so much attachment to it as we've seen in the community. And I think we owe it to the town to replace it with a landmark. And with the designs I see in the report, you can see them in almost any community across Ontario. They're cost effective and they're easy to put up, and they can be prefab and dropped in place. But I don't know that it's going to give the breadth of design and that exceptional design that makes people want to get off and check it out and creates that landmark. So I'm nervous going forward with the recommendation that it starts to pigeonhole us into other decisions that limits the potential of the site and the potential of the river crossing. I really like Mayor Panko's idea of taking a working group or a smaller subcommittee and digging into the options and digging into the functionalities and what we could look for in it. I think the black is the only way to go because of the reasoning you say, Director McMunn, with the downtown and the canal. The black's used on the lock, the metal parts of the locks, and it's all the way to our lampposts. So I think it fits in well. I think the lighting on the deck is going to be critical part of the aesthetic of it, and hopefully we can get those falls finally lit up. But yeah, right now to pick a type of truss, I'm not seeing the inspiration here that says, like, even in these photo examples, they're golf courses or parks, or they're not central locations like the one we're replacing. And I don't know, something that looks good over a highway for a pedestrian crossing might not be the best fit in this location.
Any other comments? Haven't heard from Councillor McKenna yet.
I should have went first, Mr. Chair, because now my colleagues have got my head spinning, which is a good thing. Initially, I was with Councillor Brennan, the bowstring, concrete, black, move forward. I would very much like to hold on to the idea of a platform, even if the platform is on the north side instead of the south side, because it doesn't have to be on both sides is my point. What's the best view? I like Councillor Miller's suggestion, and I think we could accommodate it in almost any bridge of some kind of a stonework, even if it's not functional, but aesthetically as pillars at the entrance. It really does add And if we thought about it, we could incorporate it. Incorporate it in the design, but we could add it next year or the year after when the price of stone masonry comes down, maybe. Now, if there was enough interest, there's only a couple that have talked about some sort of a working group, and I'm assuming that, or design group or whatever, I'm assuming that would be to have somebody like Matt Perry in the room where you could say, if we did that, what kind of a cost implication would that have? Because I have all sorts of grand ideas, but we have a modest budget. And this is where Councilor McGuire and I sometimes, he gives me a hard time for not thinking big enough and thinking grander. And I say, well, I'm just a working class guy from Smiths Falls, and I'm happy with functional, good design. But if there was a fourth councillor who said, yeah, let's put a design group together, I could be talked into going with it. But otherwise, if there's not, as I said, lighting's critical, black, bowstring, some sort of a concrete and some sort of a viewing platform or photo platform. And either this year or the next couple of years, adding those stone pillars that Councillor Miller suggested. That's where I'm at right now. Thank you.
Mayor Panko.
Yeah, thank you. And I love the feedback that we've heard this evening. And I just want to go back to the Active Transportation Fund. And so I think there's reading the criteria, and I'm no expert on funding criteria, applying for grants, but it can pay for up to 60% of the cost of active transportation infrastructure for municipalities. And in this situation, we don't know when the next intake is, but it might be a month or 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 down the road. And what we're doing here is something that's going to stand, as the director has indicated, for the next 50 years. And so I would rather take the time to sort of get exactly what we all agree is the most suitable structure there, and potentially line it up so we can be prepared for the next intake of this grant program. If we can get several $100,000 or $500,000 or $600,000 out of this grant program, there's a lot of benefit in taking our time to do this right, and then taking advantage of federal funding or any other funding that may come along.
Okay. Anybody else? Can we have a show of hands who'd be interested in the bowstring design? So that's 4. Okay, so I don't can I have a show of hands who wants to have a meeting without or about that, the viewing platform? Do you want to do that now, or do you just want to go ahead with the design of the bridge for now? So is everybody comfortable just going ahead with the design for now without the viewing platform, or do you want to include the viewing platform now?
I would like to see the viewing platform and some input into the design and aesthetic components.
Would you like to have a working group put together to? Okay, so I guess. All right,
Mr. Chair.
Yeah.
I don't know that. I mean, we could. The thing is, what I was saying earlier is, it would be good to get some consensus on the design or on the style, color, and bottom of it, and then as I asked the director, after that, then. You know, I support a viewing platform, but to get things moving along, the questions we were asked tonight were the style, the bottom of it, the concrete or wood, and the paint, the color. So those 3 questions I think we could answer, and then we could have a committee or whatever after that. But those are the 3 questions that were before us on the report.
Okay, thanks. Councillor McKenna.
Thank you. And I'm trying not to waffle here, but I think Mayor Panko's point around looking at the grant application, and I'm not saying perhaps we could tailor our design to that to make sure that if we could get most or some of this paid for by the federal government, as long as if that opening didn't come to the fall, then I'm not interested. If it's imminent or a spring, early summer application process, I think a small group or large group, I don't care, to look at those features with Mac Perry, with you, Director McMahon, with the application in the back of our mind or front and center. I think, because we won't be able to do a lot of work until the water levels go down anyway. So I'm open to that group taking a step back, and I think we could do that within the next couple of weeks, I hope, depending on availability.
Thank you. One second, Councillor Miller. Director McMahon, can that be addressed after the viewing platform?
Yeah, through the chair, I would recommend, it sounds to me like there's a general appetite for a viewing platform of some kind. There was a comment made earlier that, perhaps it's on the north side of the structure. And the more I think about it, the more I think that makes sense, because that's going to offer the best views looking downstream of the dam. The other side is going to be very, very close in proximity to the dam structure. So that may not make sense anyways. But I think if we're looking at developing this RFP, the more we can get into the RFP and be very kind of decisive on what we're asking proponents to look at and to design and put a price forward for that detailed design, I think we be as specific as we can. What I'm hearing is bowstring, concrete deck, painted black, and the color is less of an issue, but okay, we're gonna pick black this evening. And lighting, whether or not that be pedestal lighting incorporated into the vertical members of the bridge along the section of from one end to the other, that's something that can be incorporated, and a viewing platform. So I think if we have a general agreement that those are the main elements that we're looking for, I think that gives me something to chew on and start to develop this request for proposal. I think to bring a viewing platform into the mix after we put out the RFP is only going to muddy the waters and perhaps cause us to issue a change order for the design, whoever we select to do the design, whichever proponent gets the work. So I think if we know right out of the gate that that's something that we're interested in, I think it would be beneficial to include that at this point.
Okay, Councillor Miller.
Yeah, so I just wanted to come on board because I started things off in a different direction, and I appreciate Councillor Brennan's comments about wanting to get this going. And then I thought Councillor McKenna kind of summarized things well, that if we could get a little subgroup together with Mac Perry, a nod to Councillor McGuire and his concerns about the heritage there. I am hoping he'll volunteer to be on that group and get that design conversation going, so that hopefully you can include some of those points in the RFP process. And like Councillor Brennan and Councillor McKenna, as long as this doesn't drag out too long, I'd like to take part in the grant opportunities as well, but I would really like to see us move forward on the bridge this year. So,
Director McMahon.
Yeah, so I certainly, for what it's worth, I certainly support the subcommittee, a bit of a working group to kind of finalize these design elements. I think there would be probably beneficial at this point, considering McIntosh Perry is still they're still involved in finalizing and kind of the last steps with the municipal Class EA to finalize that document. That if council has an appetite, if we were to consult with them, you know, maybe we have a couple of working group sessions where we have enough of a general agreements here this evening of the main elements that we want, that we have a discussion with them to kind of get a flavor sense of what this would look like. Where I'm going with it is perhaps McIntosh Perry, we keep them on the hook to come back with a preliminary design, not dissimilar to what they came to us a number of reports ago, where they had a couple of different options. So not a detailed design, just a plan view. So looking down on the structure and a side view, perhaps from the north looking south, if that's where the lookout area is going to be. And then it's something that we can visually look at. So when we come back to council for full endorsement to push this forward, we've already got the preliminary design done. We've got it figured out, locked down. This is what we're going to include in the RFP. This is what we want consultants to bid on to do the detailed design and develop the tender preparation. So I think there would be tremendous value in that. So I could consult with Lisa Marshall from Mac Perry for them to give us a costing on that, if there is an appetite from council to do so.
Thank you.
Somebody's gonna have to do it, Chair, down the road, the preliminary design, whether it be whoever we engage to do the detailed design. They're gonna have to do preliminary first, and then from that's going to inform what the detailed design looks like. So whether or not we have McIntosh Perry do it now, which I think there would be value in it to include that in the RFP document when we push it out. The more information we can get out there to all of these proponents, the better, I think.
Okay. Councillor Quinn first, and then Mayor Panko.
Thank you. And I just threw out the black paint. Just, you know, why did you come with that? I understand now what you're saying. I have no problem if it's black. And then the lighting that goes in will bring the bridge out, will make it stand out, make it very appealing for sure. And I still am with the bowstring truss. I'm still on that page. My big thing is whatever we're going to do, let's get at it and let's get it done, because this bridge has been looking terrible for a number of years and it's causing all kinds of anxiety. So let's get at it. Let's get it done. Let's build something there that is that eye-catching. Yes, I want to stop and see what this is. And going with McIntosh and Perry and keeping them there to work with them right now seems to make sense to me. They've already been involved, so that would be great. And we know what it is we're going to build, but we need to do it in a timely fashion. Thank you.
Okay, Mayor Panko.
Thank you. Yes, I can agree with the principles that have been outlined and as been recommended by Director McMahon, having a preliminary design. And I think obviously I'd like to see a pretty big viewing platform, some street furniture, like room for street furniture, not just like benches or tables. I've mentioned the lighting. I think as Councillor Miller mentioned, lots of areas for flowers. So incorporating a lot of these factors, even potentially some maybe seasonal sun shelters, like a variety of things that they could keep in mind as possibilities within this. If you feel that's a quicker method, then I'm fine proceeding that way, get some preliminary design, bring it back for some feedback, and then we can go from there. And hopefully by that time, the federal government has opened up the intake for the funding program.
Okay. So if there's no other comments, would it be safe to assume that everyone would be willing to go ahead with including the viewing platform before it goes to the RFP, just for design purposes, and then be brought to us after we have our working group? Is that everybody in favor of that? Thumbs up. Okay. Well, that sounds like we've come to a decision. Councilor McGuire.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. And just to confirm, we have consensus for a working group going forward.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Yes, Director McMahon.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I'm just wondering, do we want to determine who's going to be on this working group this evening? So it's so I know who to contact tomorrow, I guess.
Okay, who's interested in being on it? Councillor Quinn, Councillor McGuire, Mayor Panko. I'd be interested if it just depends on when they're going to be. So we'll go with you three. Are you interested, Councillor Brennan?
I think 3 would be the appropriate.
You don't want a
number
whole
for
council in the
round
working group, I
Yeah,
don't
okay.
think.
Yeah, okay. All right. So there's your answer. So have you got the direction that you need to move forward?
I do. Thank you.
Okay, that's great. All right. So moving on to our last but not least item. It's with Councillor Miller on stopping harassment and abuse by local leaders on Bill 5. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll be fairly brief here. I'm really following up on some comments I made in a March council meeting. So Bill 5 is a proposed amendment to our municipal code of conduct in Ontario to require that all municipal councillors and members of local boards comply with workplace violence and harassment policies. Orleans MPP Stephen Blaise is bringing this forward, and the second reading scheduled for the end of May. So there's more than 30 other municipalities that have provided MPP Blaise with an endorsement in hopes that it shows the need for this protection for municipal staff. We've seen examples in other municipalities of council members who abuse their power, and without this requirement being in the code of conduct, there's no ability for the council member to be removed from their seat. So the suggested amendment will permit municipalities and local boards to direct the Integrity Commissioner to apply to the court to vacate a member's seat if the commissioner's inquiry determines that the member has contravened the code of conduct by failing to comply with the workplace violence or harassment policies. So Director Costello spoke to our legal advisor, who suggested we wait to amend our own code of conduct until the bill passes. But we do have the opportunity to let the province know that the safety and well-being of all municipal staff is important to us by providing an endorsement. So I would ask council to direct staff to provide an endorsement to MPP Blaise so that we might be added to that long list of communities who are encouraging the province to move forward on this.
Thank you. Everybody in favor? Any
I have a comment. Yeah. Thanks for bringing this forward. I 100% support it. Just a sort of a procedural thing though, and I have followed this for the last couple of years, and there was an inability for the elected officials in the city close to us to really meaningfully address that situation. So if I guess my question is, our integrity commissioner would, if the situation arose, and hopefully it would never arise, but if it did, would he provide a recommendation to council, or would he have the lever to act? So what I'm saying is, would he provide a recommendation, then council would accept that, or would he have the authority himself to remove a member of council?
Councillor Miller.
Director Costello might be able to speak better on this, but the wording that I have seen in the material that was put out is that the Integrity Commissioner can apply to the court to vacate a member's seat if a local municipality directs him to do so.
Okay, I think that, yeah, through the chair, thanks for that. That bridge can be crossed when we amend procedural bylaw. And the point now is just to do a motion to join the others that support that. So, which I do. So,
thank you.
Okay. Anyone else got a comment? Okay. Well, I too support it 100%. It's something that society shouldn't be putting up with these days, and so I would support having that brought forward for a resolution from council, so that it's in the minutes and we actually do a resolution. So everybody in favor of that? Yep. Okay. Well, we've got a consensus on that. Great. So the last order of business today is adjournment. So my recommended motion is that committee adjourn its proceedings at 6:30 PM and stand so adjourned until the next duly called committee meeting. Moved by, can I have a mover? Councillor McGuire, seconded by Councillor Brennan. Carried. Everybody have a great night.